It's time for another 31 Days of Horror 2018 Toronto After Dark edition. Yes. In fact, this is the closing gala of Toronto After Dark this year, and it would mark the 20th film of the 31 Days of Horror. So, what does that mean? Well, it means there's no more Toronto After Dark coverage. It is over until next year, perhaps. It also means that I have 11 more movies to try and squeeze in before the end of the month. Now, as you can see, Leslie is not here. She did go to the film with me. There was 2 films this evening. She hasn't done either of the reviews. We figured, I knew one of them, what her thoughts were going to be on it no matter what, so we were going to do that another time. I figured she would be here for this particular one, but she decided to go to bed. It's late. Yes. So, essentially, she liked it, but I think she's in a similar boat with me in the fact that because this was the closing night gala film, you figure closing night gala, this is going to be one of the best films of the festival. It was a little bit of a letdown. Not that it's bad, I will get into that later, but we expected amazing things, and well, I'll let you know. What is it about? The film is a slasher film. It's essentially a film about camp counselors before the kids arrive, start getting killed off. And when one of the camp counselors discovers, later on, he decides, you know what, I'm going to phone up my friend who's a horror movie enthusiast and say, maybe they can help me, because he's left a message for the sheriff, but, it's late at night and the sheriff's sleeping. So no help is coming. They're in the middle of nowhere at a camp, summer camp type thing, and the only thing he could think of was to phone a friend. That was his lifeline. I'll choose phone a friend. And so it is the two of them essentially trying to figure out how to get out of this alive, right? The film is directed by Brett Simmons. Now, Brett is not a newcomer to the genre at all. You may have seen his film from 2011 called Husk. I think it got a little bit of, I haven't seen it yet, but I think it got a little bit of word, word on the street. Scarecrow, Killer Scarecrow, I think, movie. You may have also seen the Monkey's Paw, I think it was the remake from 2013. He directed that. He was also involved in 5 States of Fear, Chilling Visions, 5 States of Fear, 5 States of Fear 5, I think it's 5, it's one of those anthology films. He's also got a writer credit on the film, along with a few other people, oddly enough. There's quite a few writing credits on this film. One is Thomas P. Vitale, who's not a writer. This is essentially pretty much his only writer. He's a producer, and he's got production credits on all sorts of different things. Lake Placid 3, Ghouls, Ghost Voyage, Triassic Attack, Arachnoquake, Boogeyman, Rise of the Zombies, Battle Dogs, Robo Croc, Zombie Night, Sharknado. Of course, these are different things. He could be a producer, executive producer, associate producer. There's all sorts of different levels of production. Producer credits, not production, producer credits. And he's got multiples all over there. So that's obviously his main thing. He's a talker. He's obviously a talker. I don't know how much of writing he did with this, but seeing as how he's more a producer, I'm thinking he may have did a few, maybe you'll want to do this, maybe you'll want to do this, maybe you'll want to do this, and then maybe he was able to get into this film as a producer more so. the actual writer. Also on the writing is Kovis Berzoin. Nothing on this guy. He's got nothing going. There's two other credits according to IMDb, and they are created by credits. And one is Sam Sykes. Don't know anything about him. This is essentially all he's got going. And the other one is Chuck Wendig. Now, Chuck Wendig shows up in the credits, and I recognized the name. So I don't know if this is like adapted. I don't think so. But Chuck Wendig is a writer. He's written comic books. He's written books. I think games. This is his thing. And the reason why I recognize the name is he did the Star Wars Aftermath series of books. And so they're actually some of the few Star Wars books haven't read them. I listened to them books on tape. So that's where you could see his name on the front of every book on tape. That's how I recognized that. And it didn't dawn on me when I watched the film. It was when I looked him up and I was like, who is this guy? Why does he seem familiar? And that's how he ended up seeming familiar to me. So I don't know what he did. He's got it created by along with Sam Sykes. So maybe this was a comic, or I don't know. But either way, they created this idea, I guess, somewhere. I don't know what the background is on that. But yeah, so essentially, like I said, this is a bunch of camp counselors and such. The main camp counselor who's on the phone is Fran Kranz, who you can know from all sorts of different things. Like lots. He's been in a lot of different things. I don't even know what Journey Quest, the television series. He was in that. Rebirth. Much Ado About Nothing. Diary of a Wimpy Kid 2, if that's your whole thing. A lot of people will probably know him from the TV show Dollhouse. He's the Topher Brink character. That's where I knew him from, mostly. But yeah, I mean, he's in a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, even from when he was much younger. But I'm trying to think. Bloodsucking Bastards he was in. And yeah, I don't know, a bunch of other stuff. But that's wait, was he Cabin in the Woods? Was he in Cabin in the Woods? Let me look it up. Yes, The Cabin in the Woods. That's right. He was in that movie. So those are the two. Dollhouse and The Cabin in the Woods I'd say they're the big ones where you probably know him from. And he calls up his friend at the comic shop, the geek store, played by Allison Hannigan. Yes, the lovely girl from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, How I Met Your Mother, the American Pie films. That took up most of her career, I think. Dead Man on Campus. My Stepmother is an Alien too, I think, as well. But yeah, Allison Hannigan. Love Allison Hannigan. One of the big reasons why I was looking forward to this is because I don't think she had done a lot of stuff I had been watching outside of How I Met Your Mother, but I never watched How I Met Your Mother. So that's what she's been doing lately, since essentially Buffy and the American Pie films. So I wanted to see, something else she's done, and I didn't want to be watching another sitcom. So, yeah, I was looking forward to her role in this, and yeah, it was kind of different. Obviously, her stuff, because she's only on the phone in this comic book shop, she doesn't take place she never shows up at the camp or anything like that. So, her part was obviously shot separately. So, yeah. I don't know that she ever got to meet any of the rest of the cast. Honestly, it was probably one of those things where I don't know, maybe they were shopping around for somebody to play the part, maybe, I don't know, something, but yeah, it could be anything, but yeah, there are several other people in this who play essentially camp counselors. We got Brittany S. Hall, who, I don't know, you may know her. I didn't really. She looked kind of familiar, but I don't know, nothing. When I looked her up, she was in a Drumline movie, a sequel, but I've never seen it. Jenna Harvey is in this film. I think this may be her first film. Brian Price, I think he played the Kayak King, I think is what they called him. So he was in charge of the boats and boat safety and stuff like that. I think he was in The Monkey's Paw, but that's the only thing I think I recognize him from. Patrick Walker, he was in Rings. Trying to think. Scream, the television series, and I think there was something else I was thinking about. Who knows? Whatever. Either way, those are good enough. Push was the other film that genre fans might know him from. Then we got Jack Murillo. I don't think he's done really anything before this film. Sarah Catherine Bellamy, who, again, nothing. Carol Jean Wells was in uncredited in Jugface. She played a little girl. But that's about it. Again, there's a bunch of counselors. I think there's some I even missed. But yeah, anyways, what makes this different, or what makes this good? It's not exactly scary. Most slashers aren't really scary. Some of them do tend towards that a little bit more than others, but maybe not scary, who knows. And then let's see what else. I'm setting this camera up here. It's a little wonky. I don't want to follow. Gore. This gore is not honestly, when it comes to slashers, I think this is the one area where a lot of people tend to fall a little flat on their first features or the first slasher type films, or low budget slasher films sometimes, because it's not old school slasher where when the first, your first of your series, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, whatever, Halloween, etc. Not a lot of gore in these films, right? But they get gorier as the series goes on. But now we're way past the series going on. We're even past rehash of slashers. That was the Scream phase. We're into just putting movies out there now. So a lot of audiences, when they hear slasher, they think, all right, great kills, good gore, let's do this. You might be the killer doesn't really deliver in that aspect, unfortunately. So if that's what you are into and that's what you want and this is what you're looking for, sorry, there is blood. Don't get me wrong, there is blood. It just may not be kind of what you're looking for. So why, other than Fran Kranz and Allison Hannigan, why is this worth watching is essentially what it is. And I think it's in the way that the film is told. Most of the film is told as kind of flashbacky, as in Fran Kranz is on the phone telling Allison Hannigan's character what has happened to try and figure out what will happen or what they can do, right? So there's a lot of back and forth on the phone. So most of the film is sort of like flashback sequences of, you know, these two people talking and what they're talking about and him recounting what happened. That's not necessarily new per se. I mean, out of sequence, and they're not in sequence obviously, because it's they're asking questions, they tell something, oh, but what about this person? Well, this person was killed, you know, earlier than that, and this person was killed later than that, and this person was killed in between that, and it depends on when you ask the question, and that's when you get told that particular portion of what happened. So when it comes to telling things out of order, not new. I mean, many films have done that. Films have been told in reverse. Films have been told out of sequence. Flashbacks are not new. That's been around forever. Getting help via, you know, from somebody because people are getting killed, again, not necessarily a new thing. So what's going on here? Well, it kind of goes along with the whole idea of you might be the killer. You see, and this is, I'll say this is a spoiler, but it really isn't, because it's revealed very early on. I think it's like the second phone call. The "you might be a killer" or "the killer" refers to the guy on the phone phoning up and saying what's going on, and Allison comes around and is like, have you ever thought that you might be the killer? And he's just like, what? And so yes, this is why you get a lot of flashbacks and a lot of out of orders and all that kind of stuff. And it's the idea that the guy looking for help is also the guy who's doing the killing. And I'll leave it at that, because to give any more away would give away too much of the film. But I think it is the whole comedic aspect of Franz and his character, and the way Allison's just like, she's so nonchalant about it, right? She's just in the comic shop, oh yeah, well, blah, 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 oh yeah, well, blah, 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 blah. You know, like the nerdy person is just like, oh, well, have you tried this? Oh, well, you know what? Try that. Oh, did you think of this? And of course, Fran's on the other side just freaking out, right? Because it's just like, what's going on? And I think that's where this film kind of shines. Fran does an amazing job being the killer / person who's trying to get away from the killer / figure this whole thing out and you know, save the day, I guess. And that's where this film really sells itself. I couldn't really, I'm sure this kind of idea has been done before. I just can't think of where. But when you put all of those aspects together, that's where it kind of gives it a little, like, it seems a little fresher than you know, you might otherwise think. The only thing, well, one of the problems I had with watching it is because of the reasons why I like it are also the reasons why I have problems with the film. It's a little disjointed. It doesn't, the look of the film when they're at the camp and all that stuff is going on is a different look than when they're, you know, Allison's obviously shot, I'm guessing, on a different camera completely, different lenses, and I get it, they were probably going for a different feel while she's on the phone, but visually they just didn't seem to go together. I don't know, the look of the two, comic shop and then the camp, I think they should have visually, though they should, you know, we're trying to be distinct because they felt like they weren't in the same movie. If I'm making myself clear, they're clearly shot at different times, and just because of logistics, you can tell that right off the bat. You don't need to, I mean, maybe if you don't know anything about film, then yes, maybe you may think that, oh, well, they, whatever, shot it, they'd go and shoot hers, and then they'd shoot more stuff at the camp, and then they'd shoot hers. No, you know, most people know by now that films aren't shot in order. Well, most of them aren't, some of them are. But, so her stuff was all shot probably in a day. Probably in a half a day. Who the heck knows? all she has to do is walk around, talk on the phone, and people have extras in the shop. But it just felt like it wasn't part of the same film. It just didn't look like it was, and obviously it wasn't shot at the same time. But when you put them together, they just seemed a little off. And then you get the whole bouncing around the story and that aspect. There was just, I don't know, there was maybe it was post-production or choices on in terms of the script or something. It just seemed like there was aspects that were cut out that kind of might have made it go together a little bit better. And I'm not just talking about the Allison's portion and the camp portion. I'm talking even the camp portion in general. It just seemed like the telling of that, at least at the beginning, seemed a little, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. I'd have to probably watch it a couple more times. But there's something in there that's just missing. Maybe it's an added couple of scenes or so, or maybe it's just kind of the way it was shot and then put together. Something about it just didn't really gel properly. It didn't flow properly. But outside of that, I mean, it's a decent film. It's an entertaining film, which is why I think it was put as the closing gala. I just kind of expected more. I really wish the gore levels would have been more. I really wish there would have been more to it in that aspect. And I get it. They're going more for comedy here than anything. This is, yes, a horror comedy where comedy is supreme. Without getting rid of the horror elements. So if you go a little over, little extra on the gore and the scare, you may not hit it with the comedic notes. So I get it. Still doesn't mean I don't want more. Ooh, spooky. But yeah, if I had to rate this out of 5, I say 3 out of 5. It's a solid 3 out of 5. I would give it a recommend. It's definitely a worthwhile watch. I think people will have fun watching it. I don't know that it is necessarily a repeat viewing. I liken it to The Cabin in the Woods. It's not as slick as The Cabin in the Woods in terms of how it looks and such, but it's in the same area. But The Cabin in the Woods feels like bigger budget, more, it's sleek, it's solid. This one seems to be a step down, but in terms of feel and such like that, they're on in the same boat. So if you're a fan in the Cabin in the Woods, you'll most likely be a fan of this film as well. Whereas I find, The Cabin in the Woods, I do enjoy watching. I've watched it a few times. This film, I don't know how many rewatches I can get out of it before I've, been like, okay, I've seen it enough times, I don't need to see it again. I don't know. Only time will tell on this one, because I've only seen it once. I will most likely see it again, because that's the way I work. But, it'll come out on video eventually, right? But yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, if it happens to come to a festival near you, check it out. It's almost guaranteed to have a home video release or video on demand. So give it a watch. Let me know what you thought of it. What the heck is phoning at this time of night? Probably should have picked that up, otherwise I probably woke people up. But it's all the way over there. I can't get to it. Stuff in the way here. Anyways, where was I? Yes. If you happen to see it, comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the film. Keep spoiler free. As always, more 31 Days of Horror still to come, even though the Toronto After Dark Film Festival is now over. But But yeah, thanks for watching. Till next video, take care. Have a good one.